Basic Skills meeting. You've all been walking around and learning something about what's out there. I was very impressed. We do have some new members that are bringing things for the first time. Dan Holowicki, our photographer, is taking pictures of everything. It'll be on our website. You'll get to see the photo gallery of your stuff there. Okay, some of our normal things. Are there any new members here that this is their first meeting? If so, I'd like to... Wow! All right, could you just stand up and just say your name and...
I'm Norman, brand new member. Been interested in woodworking since I was a kid, but don't have any formal training, and I'm delighted to be here and participate. And need a piece of advice also on a project that I'd love to talk to anyone about.
We're delighted to have you, and Norman's got some things that he brought. Who else?
What do you like to make? Small things through the big things. Everything. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Joe Gregoria, first meeting. Haven't given you a check yet, but you know, if anybody wants one, stop by. Don't be a crowd. A little bit of everything in woodworking, mostly just trinkets and toys. Not toys, but just trinkets for the grandchildren.
Behind you, Dave McCabe. Raise your hand, Dave. Dave's our membership chairman. He'd be happy to get your form and
Okay, not a problem.
welcome you.
Yeah, welcome.
Some more hands I saw. Yes. Yes.
My name is Abraham. I'm recently retired. I'm from Poland,
Perfect.
as you can tell from southern Detroit. I just came to learn. I have a lot of experience in cutting metal, but wood is a whole different animal.
Yes.
It breathes and stuff. So
Well, you're the right place to learn about
that's why,
that.
and he brought me here.
Okay, we're hoping to share. And Mike, you're an old timer.
Well, old timer, new timer. I was a member back in '93, I think.
Yeah, but who's counting?
Somewhere, yeah, who's counting? It was when we were meeting in Royal Oak,
Yeah.
at the Royal Oak Senior Center. Then family happened. Now retirement happened. Right? So I decided, literally on a lark, to see what this was all about again. Last time I was here, I met with a furniture maker, became an apprentice of his, and I did some working with him. And then again, the family happened, and didn't do it for 10 or 15 years. I like to build furniture. I built 2 kitchens, I built cupboards, and I built chairs, and I built tables, whatever. Just want to learn some new tricks and actually get some leads on how to get my table saw fixed. I have a Delta Unisaw that is, well, when I bought it, it was older than me. I bought it 30 years ago. The arbor is shot, and I think the bearings are gone, and I need to get somebody to help me
Hey,
fix
Mike,
it.
see me after. I'll tell you where to get your Delta parts.
Okay.
If you don't already.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Anybody else? Let's see some more hands. First time?
I'm Ron Holowicki, Dan Holowicki's brother.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not a member yet. This is my first time coming here to see what it's all about. And I've dabbled in woodworking most of my life, you know, a little bit here and there.
Dan's making it a family affair.
Yeah, just wanted to see what it's all about.
Oh, that's great. That's
Take a
great.
look.
Well, you've got a good mentor
Yeah,
there to
absolutely.
to learn from.
Thank
Welcome. Okay, anybody else? Any guests? Any more guests first time? Okay. Actually, that is delightful to see that many new members. Membership, it goes up and down, but we've had, you know, a lot of folks have had to retire, sell their shop, and downsize and move. So it's nice to see new activity. Thanks. All right, let's do a tool raffle, Ed. Well, for new members, the way we do every meeting, we have a tool raffle. Ed Stuckey's our forever treasurer. Goes somewhere scouring and buys 3 nice little tools. And then we raffle them off. So we're going to pull 3 numbers out of the box. First one called gets to come up and pick whichever of the three prizes they won, then the second, then the third. We've got a marking knife, woodworking marking knife, scratch awl,
Thank you.
and a neat micro sander with Velcro. And it looks like there's about 200 sanding strips of all grits in there. So here we go. I got 3 tickets in there. 249.
They cost your eyes, so they're really dry.
Okay.
You want it?
Sure. Well, Scratch awl. At this point, I always talk about a preview what our next monthly meeting is. Next month, on October 11th, we have our annual special meeting where we bring in a woodworking professional from somewhere in the country and do an all-day Saturday seminar. This week we have Tim Puro, who's a finishing expert. He spoke to us about 5 years ago, and on finishing. His topic this year is slightly different: furniture refurbishing and repair and fixing woodworking mistakes. So, a lot of us, when we get into woodworking, we like to make things and hate the finishing part. And when friends and neighbors know you do woodworking, they want to bring you a piece of furniture and say, "Can you fix this?" I can't. But Tim's going to talk about how to do that. So we thought that would be interesting. We are facing a little problem, though. It's 1 month to go before that meeting, and I've got 13 signups. Last year, with Tom McLaughlin, at this point, a month before, we had 48 signups. And the year before that, with Mike Belzowski, at this time, we had 25 signups. So we've only got 12 now. And it's going to be a month from now. And we have to have our usual at least 40, or hopefully 45 or 50 to make it pay for itself, which it almost always does. So I just want to ask, is there anyone in this room that thinks they're going to go but has not signed up yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That'll bring it to 24. That's a lot closer. I have sent the application out to 6 other groups, other woodworking guilds: Sam Beaufort Woodworking Institute, Mid-Michigan Woodworkers Guild, West Michigan Woodworkers Guild. But I've got about 50 applications here that normally we bring them to some of the local shops. We haven't done that yet. Ron Ross would normally take a batch to Rockler. He's ill today, so he's not here. But Bird, could you take a half a dozen to OPC?
I'll do
Dan,
what?
you already printed some of your own.
Yeah, I did it too.
Would you like some new ones? You can bring to Homestead.
Take them to the Woodcraft as well. Going over there.
Okay, all right, I got a batch for Woodcraft.
I'll do Rockler and Novi.
So you can do that, okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so you guys said you'd take some. Don't let me forget after the meeting. And I will send another email out to you guys, to our membership again. Well, that's encouraging that many. I'm going to ask, please sign up now though, because if we don't get close in the next week or so, I don't know, I may have to call Tim and say what we want to do. So good, appreciate that. Okay, so there we go. Well, we're moving right along here.
I got a tip that I received a couple weeks ago. How many people here use a shop vac or rigid vacuum cleaner, one of these small things, as your dust collection system, or some of your dust collection system? Do you have an issue with that filter always getting clogged? You know, always having to, wrap it out, or changing the filters? Well, the suggestion was, you go and get a pool filter. You know, the type of filters that they put on the top of a pool to skim out all the crap and everything that's in there. You get this and you put it over that filter. It still acts as a filter to keep the dust and stuff like that from going into the main filter, but it's easier to get out, it's easier to remove and to work with. I brought a packet of those, and you guys who raised your hands, I'd be delighted to give you one of the filters to try out. It seems that Mr. Google has these filters. You can buy 3,000 of them for like 50 cents. Now, you know, are you ever going to use 3,000? No. That's why I'm delighted that people who, you know, we're delighted to give them to.
Projects today. I didn't have him on the list. I think I'll go down in this order. Some of them I have pictures of their project, but the project is also here. So, guys, I think we can easily take 5, 10 minutes to go over your projects. Don't feel obligated. If you just want to say a few words, that's fine. If you want to spend more time, I think we'll be real good. So, Dan, if you want to start.
Well, this is a piece right here. My wife and I inherited her parents' original bedroom set, which they purchased new in the late 40s. We've been using it as a guest bedroom set for quite a few years now. It came with the bed. It had one bedside table, a chest of drawers, and a dresser with mirror. I always wanted to make a second bedside table for it. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. But anyway, I always wanted to make a second bedside table. So I looked at the original bedside table, figured out how it was constructed. To me, it was kind of odd because it was all poplar with mahogany veneers. And you think, how do you stain mahogany or poplar to match mahogany? But surprisingly, it can be done. But anyhow, I had some mahogany veneer laying around. And I also had 3 pieces of mahogany blanks that worked out perfect for 3 drawers over here. The original only has one top drawer and a door over here. But I decided, what the heck, make it, just a bit different. So the dimensions are almost identical to the original bedside table. Like I said, I used plywood for the top and the sides, and I veneered it with mahogany. The drawers are, the fronts of them are solid mahogany. Drawer sides, back are poplar. They're all hand-cut dovetails. I was able to find almost identical hardware from Paxton Hardware. And when it came time to finish it, I came up with 7 different recipes. Most of them were probably 4 to 5, 6 steps each. And I made up a bunch of test boards so that I could get the poplar legs to match the mahogany veneer pieces. It came out well. My wife is really happy with it, and I'm glad I finally got this project done. It was the first time I worked on making drawer fronts that were, had a bow to them that had to be band-sawed out. A lot of patterns I made from the original, I used either poster board or 1/4-inch plywood to make a pattern that I used to get the curvatures right and that sort of thing. I did these little moldings up here. I made those, I just took a wider board, and I think it was only about 3/8 of an inch thick, routed the edges on it, then cut it out really thin. The front ones had to, I soaked them in hot water, and I was able to bend them. It's not a real severe bend, that worked out fine. So the project took about, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 months, I guess, from start to finish. That's it. Any questions or anything?
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Tom Duke, by the way, has presented before. There's a theme to his project, so this is a continuation.
Well, I brought these 2 chests. The first one is cherry. I found a really nice piece of curly cherry at Armstrong Millworks, about 10 feet long and 2 inches thick. And so that inspired me to do another cherry chest. And I did dovetail miter tops. This was my first attempt at doing OG feet, which I found were pretty straightforward. I have a set of maybe 16, 18 hollows and rounds. And basically, those planes sharpened just did a terrific job creating these OG feet. I found it really an enjoyable process to do. The top, I think, is a great piece of book-matched curly cherry, but the first one I did, I wasn't very satisfied with, so I cut everything up, made the bottom of the chest with the first top. So this was actually my second top that I made. This chest I really have an affinity for because I found all the hardware, which is old Spanish colonial hardware in Nogales, Arizona. And I have more of it, but the barrels on the hinges were so old and so worn they would not have worked. So I sent them to my blacksmith in Tennessee. He put new pins in them, tightened them up, and heated everything up, used the linseed oil to darken it, so all the finishes were similar, and sent it all back to me, and here you go. So I was really pleased to repurpose that old hardware, and it's a lot of fun to do. So that's just it, a simple walnut chest in a Spanish style.
Tom, you did say you hand-planed all the boards on the big chest?
Oh yeah.
Not a planer?
Anything that's rough, I've got a scrubbing plane to flatten it and fix it all up. But I do use a machine plane, you know, that's 20 inches if I need it. Absolutely.
I was going to say, Tom's shop has all that's needed, but he still likes to use hand.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hand-cut dovetails?
Yes, sir.
Terrific.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Tom, you built that big chest, at least a dozen of them, right?
Yeah. It's about 15.
Yeah. And you published a book. When you were 12, I think you published your book.
At 12, I published a little book called 12 Chests, and I put on there what relative was going to get each chest. And so I printed about 30 of the books, so I'd have a few extras, but all the chests got shipped to relatives, and they got a copy of the book to go with it. And one of my grandchildren is sitting on top of one of the chests, and it just worked out as a great family piece.
I can say he did donate us one of the books. I do have one of his books. Thank you. Thank you. New member, Phil Mueller, has a round table that he's going to show us.
Inspired by period furniture, and I love solid wood furniture, but there's just some things you can't do with solid wood that makes, you know, veneer a fun thing to do. And so this was kind of an exercise in how do you take some really cheap material and dress it up with some, you know, some veneer. This is like my second, maybe third table, and I saw a picture of a similar table online. What really attracted me to it was the legs. I had never seen a leg that was veneered with some inserts and stringing and whatnot, so thought I'd go ahead and give it a shot. So the top is basically MDF. The rest of the table is all poplar, except for some of the moldings and the feet are walnut. The 2 veneers were chosen primarily from a website on just the color. I was looking for kind of a dark brown and like yellow. I'd never heard of them before, but apparently they're fairly popular with veneer. Buck or something is the yellow one. And the dark one is, let me remind myself, Edamo. I like Federal period. fridge, so I always have to put a couple of shaded fans in my furniture, so I enjoy making those. And all in all, it's been a daily user in our house, and it was a fun project. So, thank you.
Could you tell us how you made the fans?
So the fans are sand shaded. It's a very old process where you essentially take actual sand, I put it in a cast iron skillet, about a 1/4 inch thick. My wife enjoys this part where I heat it up on the stove. And then the small pieces that you use are dipped into the sand once it's heated up, and it actually burns the piece of wood and it causes the shading. So it's blacker at the bottom and it shades up as you get higher in the sand. And we were joking earlier about, what kind of sand you use. Steve uses beach sand from Florida. I use sand from Michael's. And it works just fine. But, and then once the shading is done and they cool down, then you go ahead and cut out the pieces. But the traditional wood used in Federal was holly. I'm too cheap for holly, so I use maple most of the time. I like the color. We take the batteries out of smoke alarms when I do this. So.
Does your wife still use that skillet?
No, that's my skillet. That stays with my stuff, so.
Thank you, Norm.
Any other? Thanks.
Thank you.
Steve coming up now. Steve Lash. Now, Steve has his piece here, but he's also put a PowerPoint together. Excuse me, those of you that don't know, Steve is essentially one of the founding members of our guild. Right, Steve? Going back 40 years?
I was at the second meeting.
Second meeting, 40 years ago.
And I was in I think we got started in Ann Arbor.
Way before my time.
Yeah, and I was a resident, and I went to I was working wood in my basement, and this sounded cool, and so I went to the second meeting, and these fellows that started it were all Ann Arbor artists and far above me, so, but
you showed them, huh?
Yeah, well, I don't know. But anyway.
And also, Steve is a founding member of the Society of Period Furniture Makers?
Right.
A national society, so we're honored with a top.
We're having our 25th anniversary meeting in Williamsburg. I think the Cartouche Award ceremony is on October 10th, so I'm going to be speaking at that meeting. But anyway, getting back to this little table, this is called a bouillotte table, and that's my wife's leg next to it. We saw it at an antiques store in New Orleans, and it was on Royal Street. And I really fell in love with it because a bouillotte table, meanwhile, is an 18th century French card game called bouillotte. And the game was so popular that they made special tables for it of the same name. And what intrigued me was the tabletop. And the tabletop veneer, all of the marquetry squares, which were all made by hand, that are made up of on the diagonal. So when you look at the table, you'll see that they're all made on the diagonal, and all of the squares point toward that little green dot in the middle. So I was intrigued by it. So I thought that, and this is an etching from the 18th century of them playing on a bouillotte table, playing bouillotte on a bouillotte table, and that's a bouillotte lamp that goes with the table too. I don't have the stockings or the hats, but okay. So originally, what I had to do was cut the squares from parallel cuttings on the diagonal, because I was making these into little parallelograms. And then I had to test all the squares on the
tabletop, once I had cut out the tabletop. So I tested all the squares with these lines to make sure I had the exact number of squares in the tabletop, and all these are cut on the diagonal. And then once the outside squares, which are tapered so they'll fit around a circle, where the veneer was cemented in, then I actually glued in a mahogany holly strip that goes around the, you can see goes around the inside of those mahogany squares. And that's the tabletop that is finished basically before it's colored. And then what I had to do now was I made the sides, the round sides, and the legs, and put it all together, but they're not glued here. I had to see how this thing was going to fit. I only had 3 dimensions for this. And dimensions where I knew how high it was, and I knew the diameter of the top. So I had to figure out what the diameter of the shelf was, and I'll come to that in a moment. But once I had it all assembled, then I laid out on each one of the sides the diagonally shaped excuse me, veneers that go into the sides, into each one of these sides. And they're laying here angled before I cement it up. Then, once I figured out how I was going to veneer the front, since when I assembled it but didn't glue it, it was full size, but now I had to cut very carefully, cut an 1/8 inch off of the front of the sides, and you can obviously be aware if I screwed up here, I'd have to make another side. So, and the side was made out of actually a 1x4 that was that I got at Armstrong Millworks and carved out. That wasn't too difficult, and I'm not going to go into that. But I didn't know what challenges I was going to have while I was veneering, so that's why I waited until the end to cut the edge off the sides. Let's see. Oh, what did I do?
Kevin,
Okay. Okay, and there's the side with the angled veneers in and the mahogany lines in. And I then had to place a ruler between the legs on the bottom to make sure that the leg position was accurate, and it was, otherwise a perfect circle on the bottom wouldn't fit. And there's all the parts together as it usually do. If you check the inside of that drawer, there's a little, there's a little secret drawer that's behind the main drawer. Is there?
Yeah, that's top. There you go.
That's a little secret drawer that goes behind it in the spot. All my things have a secret drawer in it. And basically, there's the piece. All the photography to finish, I used to have it done by Dirk Bacher, who was a professional photographer at the DIA, and now I use Tim Thayer, who's a professional photographer, because I can't take a picture like that. So that's the bouillotte table that Marie Antoinette probably owned before she lost her head. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
The very first picture of the one that you saw at the sale was a price tag, I think.
Yes, that wasn't a price tag.
Oh.
That was the dimensions and the dimensions where I got the dimensions from. It just said 29 3/4 inch high, 17.5 inches diagonal.
So you don't know what
I
you
don't
would have
know what
had. You don't know what you would have had to
I
pay to
don't
buy
know
it.
what I would have paid for that, and I guarantee you I wouldn't.
You wouldn't have done it.
I'd rather build it than pay for it.
The sides there, you said it was complicated to make, but did you bend those to get that arc? Or
No, I sawed it.
Sawed it. It was a big piece of
It
wood.
was a big piece of wood, and it sawed it out.
But you could saw a couple of them out of the one piece.
No, because one piece, I had some stuff left, obviously, but, and I've used it all.
Just trying to chunk it, okay.
Yes,
Steve,
sir.
when did you start that table?
I was in last October, and I finished it probably, this is what, I finished it probably in April, May, something like that. So, yes, sir.
I noticed on one picture, it looked like you could use some more heavy-duty clamps.
I think I used every clamp I had in the shop. Thank you.
Thanks for your
In the period furniture vein, we've got Rich Herbert here to show his federal table.
And who gets to follow the great Steve Lesh? I guess somebody had to do it.
I do want to say to some of you new members,
Just put that anyway.
you can be encouraged by the great craftsmanship you see.
Thank you.
But don't be discouraged, because most of us cannot do that. And there's plenty of projects here that us normal people can make too.
Okay, first of all, I just got back from a week at Mark Adams School of Woodworking, where this table was half finished when I brought it home. I've been going there, this is my 25th year I've been going to Mark Adams. We got some interesting news. For you guys that have gone to Mark Adams, Doug Dale is his right-hand man, and he is retiring at the end of the year. And also, Mark Adams is stepping back. Oh. Yeah, so he says he's starting to forget stuff, and I said, man, that's part of the game. And but he said he's still gonna be in the background. I mean, he lives right there and all. But he's turning over to a new generation, and he's got some great young woodworkers there. He's trained them for years, so I'm sure it's going to go very well. So I walked in, I had made some things and brought them to this event many years ago. Nothing major, but I wanted to make a table. So I looked online, and Steve Latta was making a federal table. I didn't know what a federal table is from Queen Anne. So anyway, the first day we walked into class, and he said, "This is the table, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be using on the front of your table." And I'll let you guys come up and look at it afterwards. That thing goes every which way but loose. And I looked at that leg and I said, "Oh, I'm in the wrong class." But it's all a process, and I want to encourage guys too. I never thought I'd be doing stuff like this. And thanks to guys like Ed here and all the guys that came before him, and some of you guys out there, man, you can do it, okay? Everything's a process, and you do one step at a time. Last week, we did, talk about being challenged. I always wanted to make a model boat out of wood. And so we, was a model boat building, shipbuilding introduction. And boy, did I have a respect for you guys. If you guys make model boats, I didn't have any problem with the hull, and it was all plank on plank. It was pretty intricate. It was not huge. Was a long boat, but when I got into the rigging, I said, "Oh man, this is going to take some time." So I thought I was going to come back home with a model ship. It didn't happen. I was going to bring it here today. It didn't happen. So anyways, back in about, I think, 2013, I took the class. And like I say, I came home with a table that was about 40 to 50% done. And it sat in the basement for about a year and a half. And then I took the Maloof style rocking chair class, another major project. And I came home with that one too, and it was about 40 to 50% done. And then I told my wife, I says, next year I'm taking, and she stopped me right there, she says, you're not taking nothing. Until you get those two done. So I was, the rocking chair class, I was fresh on my mind, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. This was in August, and by Christmas I finished the chair. And I was so inspired that I went right into this table. And I finished that in, I think, 2015, in about March or April. And I can remember the showcase of skills that year. I brought that table. I get a little emotional. And I walked in with that table. Ed was there. I think even Steve left it in that. And the guy said, "Who made that table?" That was the fun guy. I said, "Man, that to this day that makes me feel so proud." But just to let you know, for you guys that are beginners that aren't that maybe at this level yet, you can get there. Anyway, that being said, it's a federal table. Steve Lotta he went to the museum in the winter tour. He took 250 pictures of this thing, and he said the craftsmanship in that table sold for $250,000. He said the craftsmanship in that table was junk. He says it was, but they were put in, it just glued, and so he enveloped all the joinery that's in that table now, which is, some incredible stuff. Across here, this piece under here, the banding, is all, there's a dovetail on the top that holds the top together, and I can go into all kinds of other stuff. The banding, I made all the bandings and all, I did all the stand shading and all the bellflowers, thanks Ed. Like I say, I forgot half of what I was doing there. And then here's Steve Lesh up there showing he paid all the details. That's what I should have done 15 years ago anyway. But anyway, it's been in, thanks to Ed and some of the other staff members, we were invited to Detroit Institute of Arts to show our work. I can say proudly that this has been in the DIA 4 times, thanks to these guys. So anyway, any other questions? Thank you for your time, guys. Oh, I did have one more thing. I forgot. Steve Stokes is not going to be here today. Steve, myself, and Barry, we went to a weekend class at Mark Adams with Scott Grove, and we did a patriotic cutting board. This was a really neat. If you don't, anybody that knows Scott Grove, he's pretty eccentric. He's a wild guy. But knowing that we made the, I should say, he made a form or a jib that allowed you to cut the top part and the bottom part of these mating pieces, and then you could adjust them as you go, which was really a lot of fun that weekend. The star here, the star is actually opal. And what I didn't realize is that in Japan, they farm opal. They create their own opal, and it's opal. And of course, it comes in fine little details, and it goes into an epoxy type thing where the UV light actually crystallizes this. So what we did is we took it out into the sun. We put a cup over it. Once we put it out there, put a cup over it, walked into the sun, opened it up, and boom, it rock solid. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, that was, like I say, Steve won't be here today.
That's Steve's project?
No, this is mine.
That's
but
yours.
He's got one just like it.
Okay.
3 of us made one. Okay.
Rich?
Next up, we've got Neil Hogemeyer.
My apple, I really wasn't a bit of a case. So this is a very basic case of $40 online, right? Not from the go anywhere. Most of my stuff is scroll stuff. This plate is turned on wood on a lathe first. I turn the plate shape, and then what I do is I paste a pattern around here. I scroll saw this this way. When that's done, I turn over, paste in the center pattern, and cut the bird on the inside. So that's how that's made. But I always, this is challenging for me anyway. So that was, I made a number of these for families when I do. I don't sell anything. I make things for friends and give them away. This is a utility log. You take a quarter of a log, of course, and you slice it this way, and you scalp out this cut here. And you got three patterns: a front pattern, a center pattern, a rear pattern. You cut out, and then you glue these three pieces together. You end up with a 3D scene here. The marriage cross, I made a number of these for friends that got married and newlyweds, as well as 50th anniversary couples. I put a 5-0 in here, and they love that. Give them a 50th anniversary cross. These are just some boxes I made just for fun of it. This is a veneer glass cup insert there. So this was a box with box joints and inlay there. And this is a 3D effect box cover. They're just fun to make.
Is that done with veneer?
What?
Is that done with veneer?
That is about 60 inch thick veneer. So I bought a pattern about 5-6 years ago on a carry set here. There were like 12 pieces to a set. Now I have I think about 9 pieces done. I'm going to do 2 more. I'm going to finish the king, this wise man. I'm going to work on my silent wise man. I'm going to do the third one after that. But you take you have a front pattern and a back pattern piece. Of course, you cut out the pieces, colors in the grain direction. You fit them together, and then you shape the pieces. That gives you some depth to it. And you glue the pieces together. You do that, say, from the back side, and you paste them together. You hope they all match from front to back. Sometimes you do a little finessing. The pattern sometimes lack a little bit of continuity between the front side and the back side, so you don't always match up lines around there, and they don't tell you how to do the side. You should have a side view so you can see how it rounds around. That's what I like. But anyway, you up to your own imagination to figure out how to do that. The hands and the face, and then you have like add-on sections here that the hands and face are the hardest part to do. To do a face, sometimes I do about 3 faces before I get a good one. So that's what I do. I have 2 more pieces to do for this, and I'm going to call it done. So that's it.
Hey Neil, how many Intarsia projects do you think you've done over the years? How many Intarsia projects do you think you've done over the years?
Intarsia?
Yeah.
Well, actually quite a few. It's a fun thing to do. I like to do that too. So it's you cut out the pieces, different woods, you match it together, and shape them. And so this is the most challenging, but we do a lot of just 2-dimensional flat stuff. It's not easier to do than wall plaque stuff, but I need more wall space.
Showed us some before. That's great. All right.
Neil?
We have Dennis Heisa, who is going to show us some things on a PowerPoint. Dennis is going to come up. Got your name right? Heisa? Heisa. Dennis Heisa.
So, I brought a couple small projects that are on the side there, the box and the Chippendale Looking Glass. And when I was emailing with Jerry, he thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about the process that I used to make those, because I only work with hand tools. It's a conscious decision I made when I started woodworking. I would rather sit in my shop and listen to string quartets than a bunch of noise. So, the first one is the looking glass. So Chippendale period. It's walnut with a white pine subframe, garnet shellac, and the tools that I used to make that. So essentially with those sort of looking glasses, the miters, the mitered molding is glued onto a subframe, right? It's not solid in itself. So there's a white pine subframe constructed with half-lap joints. The molding around the outside, I ripped with a handsaw from straight grain 8/4 stock, and then the material for the scroll work, I resawed out of 4/4 stock and book matched it. So the pieces on each side are put, and the top and bottom are book matched. It took me a while to learn how to do this without making a mess out of it, but it's not that bad once you're used to it and sharpen your saw. So this is just sort of where I started. That's 1/4 inch after I resawed it. And the subframe and some of the pieces. The molding, what I did is I started out by doing the outer edge. There's a bead. I did that with an old Stanley number 66 and a beading iron, assuming people know what that is, but it's basically hand scrape, right? And then the cove and OG that are done on the inside, I just did with scratch stock. So this is the blade for the scratch stock. It's actually laid backwards. So the point on the left goes into the cork there that was made by the outside bead, and then everything just fits over. So if you've got small runs to do with moldings and you don't want to do it any other way, make a scratch stock and go along. It's really not bad.
And what's the metal that the scratch is made out of?
Card scraper stock. You can use old saw blades too. And then I cut the molding on my old Stanley miter box, rough cut it, and then trimmed it with block plate to get the miters to fit. And then this is just part of gluing it together, rubber bands to use as clamps to get the scroll work on. So again, the profile molding just sits, is glued onto the white pine, and it's slightly wider than the pine is, which allows it to hold the mirror in place. And I think I put 10 coats of garnet shellac on. The memorial chest is sort of federal period. This is the first time that I tried to do veneering or marquetry. I did make some test pieces in advance, I just didn't wing this. But it's a white pine substrate with walnut veneers and different ones for the patera finished in blonde shellac. So I knew that I needed stable material for the substrate. So what I wanted to do was use quarter sawn pine, and the way I accomplished that was by going down to Home Depot, searching through their 1x12s, finding ones that were cut out of the center of the tree, had the pith down the middle, cut out the pith, glued it back together again, and I got my quarter sawn stock. And then the way the box is made, it's mitered. There's no dovetails or anything else. So I essentially started by roughing the miter with a chisel, and then finessed it with another wide chisel and a guide block. And then on the end there, I'm doing the rabbets with a moving Philister plane for the top and bottom to go inside. And then I glued this up and put some band straps around it to hold it. This is glued up with hot hide glue there, and so it's all simply edge grain to edge, end grain to end grain. There's nothing in there, no spline, no anything else. I was a little concerned about it, but when I took the clamps off, I was amazed at how solid it was, just with hide glue in the end ring. But to be safe, what I did is I did some saw cuts and put some slips in there to just sturdy it up, and at this point, the top and the bottom have been glued in. So that is a solid box, right? The top it's just all there. And then what I did is did the veneering with doing hammer veneering. So you simply, if you're not familiar with hammer veneering, you put down hot hide glue on substrate on both sides of the veneer, press it down, and then you hammer it. I don't know why they call it a hammer, because it's not, it's more like a squeegee. And you just press that down till you get all the air bubbles out of it. Typically hang a damp cloth over it so that it doesn't dry out too fast. The squeegee removes the vast majority of the hide glue on the show face, but it really doesn't affect the finish anyway. So I did that all around. And then the veneer on the outside and on the top, I purchased, but when I wanted to do the pattern of the little pot of flowers, I had to saw my own. So I used walnut, maple, and some green poplar, and just sawed the veneers by hand, with a hand saw. I do them about 3/30 seconds, and then clean them up with a toothing plane and a card scraper. This is making it so what you do is you make a sandwich of the various layers with wasters on the top and bottom. You put a cartoon on it, and it's numbered the order that you need to cut the pieces out so that it goes back together. Most of the way through it, so I just used a fret saw, cut out all the pieces, and then ended up doing some sand shading and put it all together. The way I did the aprons, I didn't want to try to mess with 1/4 inch stock, so what I did was rough cut the aprons with a turning saw out of 3/4 inch stock, and then I ripped them in half and planed them. So I ended up with two, mere 1/4 inch pieces, and just cleaned them up with a fine rasp and a file. And then this is the finished box. The fan on the bottom I also did. That's sand shaded. Gives you the impression that it's 3-dimensional. The banding, the diamond banding on the bottom, I bought from E.L. Henson. I did not make that. And the holly around the edges, all I did was use a cutting gauge and cut from both sides until the piece fell out, and then glued in the holly. And there's a special purpose for this. It was inspired by English tea chests in the form, but this is much squatter and wider. And the reason for it, if I unlock it there, is it holds 2 cremains urns that are currently empty, and at some point will be filled with what's left of myself and my wife. So, any questions?
How did you rip those big pieces with a handsaw and keep it parallel cut?
A lot of practice. As long as you get the saw sharp and it doesn't want to wander on you, once you get it started, if you're patient and you really watch it, I will tell you that it took me a while to manage to do that, but it's not really any harder than if you were just trying to take a 3/4 inch piece and rip it by hand. It's just, you got to be a lot more careful. So it's practice, but it's attainable. I mean, it's not something that I've done for years.
Do you own any power tools?
The only power tool that I own, so my shop is in the basement, it's 12 feet wide and 20 feet long. And the only power tool in the basement is a 78-year-old Delta Rockwell lathe that I picked up at an estate sale for $75 with turning tools. I'm just a little too old to do this. So, that's the only thing I use.
Wow. That's a lesson for
Yep.
a lot of us who don't want to spend money on power tools. You don't need to.
Do you use any special wood for the sandwich, like a even grained wood or something, so that it helps?
Well, so one of the things you do is, obviously, if you were doing something where you wanted a squirrely grain, then you would pick the wood appropriately. In this case, I was trying to use fairly straight stuff. But what you're doing with that is you are, when you make that sandwich, you're putting paper on the back of each sheet of veneer, which will hold it. And I use veneer tape, but that prevents it from splitting out when you make turns and all of that. The other thing that you do is you can put in a couple sheets of wax paper, which helps lubricate the saw blade while you're going around.
Keep the grain the same.
Yeah, in this case, yes. Sometimes you would not. Okay. Thank you. Oh, Rich had made a comment about SAPFAM, Furniture Makers at the DIA. I'm happy to say that we will be back next month, October 25th and 26th. Steve will be there, Phil will be there, Ed will be there. Rich, I'd love to have you. And Tom, I think, is going to be. So there'll be about a dozen of us showing our pieces and doing some demonstrations. October 25 and 26. So come down if you can. All right, thank you.
Dennis, thank you for joining us. Next up, Jim Kujay. Jim has shown at the showcase every year for, I don't know, 30 years, Jim?
Anybody that's been here over 30 years has probably seen most of these projects. I really hadn't planned on bringing anything this time. When I found out how few people were bringing stuff, actually I was on the west side of the state. So I came home this morning, went down my basement, and dusted off most of this stuff. Years ago I started making gifts for the women in my family. So most of this stuff here is all made with less than a board foot of wood. A lot of it's made from cut-offs, and it's something you can make in a weekend. So it's essentially gifts. And just to give you some idea how old some of this stuff is, 1994, this was made. 2002, or 2002. But everything here is relatively old. 2000. So all this stuff has been shown here many times. And the thing is, I've made big projects, but this is beyond my abilities. I don't have the patience for that. I could do it, I think, but I don't have the patience for it. These things here, quick gratification. You can make it in a few days. I can't think of anything here that would take more than 3 or 4 days in your shop. And usually when I make something, my background is tooling. So what I like most is trying to figure out how to make things multiple. So I'll make jigs and fixtures and so forth, even though I might only make one. But in a lot of cases, I think I've probably made close to 30 shaker boxes. And these are kind of unique. They're very simple. Shakers made these years ago, and hardly any wood in here. The thing is, it takes thin stock to do it. Different size boxes have different thicknesses here. And in my case, everything made here, the wood came off my farm. I'm fortunate to have a Centennial farm on the west side of the state. Back in the 70s, when there was an oil crunch, some of the older guys may remember the oil crunch in the 70s. My parents at the time were at the farm, and the oil went way up, and they had an oil furnace. So they changed the furnace from oil to combination oil and wood. And I worked for the automotive industry, and I had the week off between Christmas and New Year's every year. So I'd go up the farm, my chainsaws, and I'd cut down trees. I have a big wood lot on the farm. I top the trees for furnace wood, then I save the logs. When I had 15, 20 logs, I take them to the local sawmill and I have them milled up. And if you looked at my book, here you see some pictures of horses hauling my logs to my barnyard, have mills cut them and so forth. So I'm very fortunate to have unlimited supply of wood. I still have a lot of that wood. I'm downsizing now, so I'm trying to get rid of it. But these here are kind of, shaker box is relatively simple. This is kind of a Swedish version of the shaker box. It's kind of a neat design. It's got a latching system here. There's a little notch on here. And these are used for various things. So they're kind of fun to make. This is a jewelry box I made for my wife years ago. I took a class from John Wilson one time on making hand planes. This is what we made in the class. And it kind of inspired me to make some other ones. So I made some more complicated ones. And I actually made the blades. It's 01 oil hardening steel. It's a steel that's relatively easy to heat treat. You can heat treat with acetylene torch. You soften it, you work it down, and you heat it up to a certain temperature, quench it in oil, it becomes very, very hard. Then you have to temper it down to some temperature. And you can control that by looking at the color as you heat it up. And I use a acetylene torch. When it gets to a certain color, it normally starts off as straw and red and so forth. If you're up a cherry red, then it's way too hard. If it's cherry red, you quench it, you can drop it before it'll break it. He's shaking his head, he must have some experience in metalworking. But yeah. So anyways, I make my own blades, and they're about a Rockwell, probably 58 to about 60. Anything harder is hard to sharpen. And my theories on sharpening is that you can put a razor edge on there, but after you use it 3 or 4 times, it dulls. You know, so I don't have it. I'm not adverse to sharpening my tools as I go along. And this just, I've done very little turning. And I did this just more out of curiosity. I read up on polyethylene glycol. Polyethylene glycol, you can take a wood and soak it in here for some time period, certain temperature, and it dries up all the inside of the wood. You know, there's closed cells inside, open cells and closed cells. This here penetrates it, and it prevents the wood from cracking or chipping or whatever. But this here started off a very complex piece of wood, like this here. But this one here is 1994. And it's never cracked or anything. So if you want the wood turners, I'm sure they're probably familiar with this process. And these here, scrap pieces of wood. Wild weeds. This time of year, the weeds are drying up. I just spray them with lacquer so they don't all come apart. But here's something that would have normally gone into a fireplace. Kind of an unusual effect on it. I made about, I think I made 8 of these here for family members one Christmas. And this is the, and there's examples in my book there of different ones. But again, it's just simple stuff, simple pieces of wood. Sometimes we'll find a board that's got a nice grain in it, and I'll save it for something. And I have a shelf in my workshop that has, it's filled up with a little piece of wood. Too nice to throw away, and I'll probably never use them. At some point in time, I'm going to find something they have. Anyways, again, this is just all simple stuff, but it's not to that level. I envy you guys that can do ducktails. I made a Craftsman table, side table, probably 6 years ago. And it's not straight up and down, it's at a 5-degree angle. And I cannot make them damn dovetails the way I like them. Being a tool maker, I made a jig to do it on my table saw. I couldn't do it hand. I made a jig on my table saw. I made a jig for my bandsaw. I made a jig for my router. And I can't get the spacing. I just have not been satisfied with it. So it's been sitting in my shop all that time. I envy you guys that can do the dovetails. Anyway, that's my projects. And again, if you've been in the Guild for 30 years, you've probably seen a lot of this stuff already.
Sure, Jim, but there's a dozen folks here today that for sure have not seen them. So
what's that?
There's at least a dozen here that have not seen them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I really appreciate you coming in to bring them. So.
Okay, that's it, guys.
Thank you. When I asked for new members, Michelle raised her hand. I didn't come back. So Michelle, would you just stand and be acknowledged? Brand new member, just a couple weeks ago. Did you have anything that you like to make or you're thinking about maybe getting into?
I'm here to learn.
You're here to learn. Well, there's a whole range of things here, so I hope you were able to pick something up. Gerald Schmidt had brought a car, a Roadster, and he said it was a 1932 Roadster. He had it shown over there, but he had to leave. So I hope you got to see that. I'll go last if we have time. So Larry last, right?
Larry Last is not
Larry last.
Okay, I guess I should have gone last, just for the name and all that. I am not in the same class as some of these other guys, okay? So you guys are starting, I'm shy. But I tend to make things that are practical, things I need. And so I have a home office, and I keep most documents on the computer and that. And every now and then I need paper. And Mike was asking for something. Where is it? I don't know. It got to be stacked. I didn't know where to, what do I do now? So I made a little table here to put it in stacks so I could understand what I have and then say, here it is, type stuff. And all it is it's pretty straightforward, but it's live edge, which I hadn't made before. And it was a long, narrow piece. So I ripped it straight, jointed it, then biscuit and glued it together. It's really bowed quite badly, and I was hoping that the biscuits would straighten it, but there's no hope for that. So I just sanded it, and top goes like this type stuff. But it turned out really nice. This was going to be the bottom, but I was outvoted in the house, and they said, oh, this looks really nice. Okay, that's the top, because I wanted this to be angled this way. The one thing that surprised me on this, I only had this in walnut, okay? But this here is just regular pine, 2x4, laying around, so 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. Put it together. I think I doweled this just because it's so small. I often use mortise and tenon, but when it's this small, it's easier to throw dowels on it. Then I used dark walnut stain on it. And of course, in my study office, it's dark enough. Looks okay, type stuff. And because this has got a straight angle, I put a 45 on this, just standard routing kind of stuff. And it worked out pretty good. It's functional as can be. And I guess like all of us, we like what we build. And so I'm really quite happy with it. But right here, you can take a look at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Walnut is, it steals the show, so it doesn't matter what kind of quality you have. So, but anyways, it's a pretty straightforward, functional thing, and it was a lot of fun to make, and I don't know how many days I worked on it, but 4 maybe, something like that, not a lot, so just for you guys who are starting, think of me, and it'll help you out. Okay, so that's it, David.
And I guess that shows, guys, you don't need to spend a lot of money on wood.
Yeah, this is free.
That was your scrap pile.
Yeah, scrap pile.
All right, thanks, Larry. Altoma.
I'm terribly intimidated by all the level of craftsmanship I see from some of the people, so this is nothing like that. This is basically a green woodworking project. I took a class a little less than a year ago at Jim Cramer's workshop down in Monroe. This is the Lost Art Press. Chris Schwartz had a Irish Gibson chair. This is using that design. He was promoting Jim Cramer, teaching his chair class, this chair, in Monroe last year. So I jumped at that opportunity. It was only a few miles from my house, so hard to pass up that opportunity to work with other woodworkers. I was in good company. Joey Traynor He's an arborist and teaches at the Washtenaw Folk School, teaches green woodworking. Was sitting on one side of me on one of the shave horses, making his chair. And Caroline from the Sam Beaufort, she's one of the instructors at the Sam Beaufort Woodworking School. She was sitting on this shave horse on the other side of me. So I was intimidated there too, with some pretty skilled. Joey shows up with this ash basket that he'd made from scratch from in the backwoods at like the North Coast Woodworking School up in Wisconsin. So I mean, the guy's incredibly skilled. So I'm basically just a beginner. It's my first chair. So it's basically we started the class that week out behind the shop with a pile of firewood. So we had some red oak logs and we rived them all down. Real simple tools. Just got to use my froe and a club. And split down until we had the sticks we needed in the right dimensions. Made spares. Did some rough shaping on all the sticks and put them overnight in basically a little kiln made out of a couple 100-watt light bulbs and some insulating foam. Then we worked on the arms green and the back green, and this was steam bent. They had a steam box, so that once we did the final shaping and got the holes drilled for this, and when this was assembled, basically the kiln-dried sticks swelled up to fill the holes. It was taking the moisture out of the back, and the seat, which was out of an old plank of elm, but it locked up pretty good, even without it was held together with hide glue, but it locked itself in place pretty well just because of the difference in moistures. So it's a good mechanical joint there. So pretty much everything was made with just this really simple kit. I had a hand plane. The cheats were that the slab was cut down on a bandsaw. But everything else, pretty much all little curves and things, I just mostly working with a straight chisel and seams carved out with a scorp and a type of draw shave, a heel shave. So basically, like I said, I just brought out my kit just to kind of say this is really simple. We made it in the course of a week. I think this would also be referred to as like a Bodger's chair, where in the English green woodworking tradition, the Bodgers were people who would go out in the woods and cut down the trees until they had all these sticks made to the right dimensions out, and they bring often like a shave horse they made from scratch out there in the woods and just leave it to rot. They bring them in and sell pieces or make it, off-season farmers would make this. That's why this is often called a famine chair. Irish farmers would make things like this to sell to help keep the family, keep some cash coming in for the family off-season growing. So it's a very simple rustic chair. I literally use it for sitting next to the wood stove with my dog on my lap. So the dog, it works for the dog, so I figure that's the only real quality check I need to pass. So that's all.
What finish do you have on that?
This is I was experimenting with some milk paint. So I've got several layers, build up several layers of old-fashioned milk paint. And then the top finish is a homemade linseed oil and beeswax finish. Also Chris Schwartz's, the Lost Art Press, his soft wax recipe. I want to try that, made that myself. So it's just building up layers of milk paint, which is pretty chalky when you put it on, but then rub it down with lots of multiple hot steel wool to knock down. I really wanted something that replicated some of these antique chairs I've seen that are well over 100 years old that look like they've been loved for centuries. So it's all brand new finish, but I wanted to kind of make it fit in with the rest of my house, which is already 150 years old, so this doesn't stick out.
You know, first looking at, I've seen pictures of Chris Schwartz's chairs like this, and, you know, I always wondered about the, you know, the back angle. It seems like it's pretty severe. Is it comfortable to sit in?
I invite anyone to have a seat. Now, you don't have the wood stove properly.
You break it, you buy it.
No, that's not to break. It's pretty comfortable. It's like reclining.
I'm good, yeah, I'm okay.
Just now you need a beer.
I usually put a couple, like a sheepskin or something on it. It turned out, this was supposed to be just a little design feature, but it turned out these little notches, I saw them in some other chairs, and I didn't realize, I don't know if anyone's seen any of these, like African pillows. They're these wooden pillows, they're little blocks of wood that are only about a couple inches high. Now, there's no way that's comfortable, just they are blocks of wood, but apparently this notch holds back on the head just right. I can fall asleep without my head rolling over, it cradles just right. So, it accidentally found that what looks like it's just a weird design feature is actually functional design.
All right.
Wonderful.
Mr. McDonald.
I feel very inspired by this. Perfect. I feel very inspired to be here and see some of the great work that we've seen here. So I grew up on a pig farm in Canada, working with my hands, and like Jim, I mainly do things for my family. Some small things like making hand-carved hearts for my girls, and then I also put that if they ever break their heart, I mend it back together with a little bit of metal work. I did not make one of those for my wife because the expectation is that she won't ever have her heart broken. But I did make her a bed ring bracelet, which was kind of fun. I also do like arts and crafts furniture, which I didn't bring, but I did bring something I made for my wife's 50th. I restored an old town canoe and made her this as well, using hand tools. And it's a cherry beaver tail canoe paddle.
So she can paddle you around the lake?
Exactly, put her in the back. Like Jim, I also have done a bunch of crib boards, although his are much more sophisticated, but a little holder in the back as well. Oops. And then I've also made a few chessboards. So the first one I made, so this is end-grain Padauk and maple, and I fastened it securely onto the frame. And then the first winter, it tore itself apart, which was a very important lesson for me. So the next 5 that I made for my 4 kids and for us, this floats within here and is much more stable. And then also just did a little wood burning as well to personalize it for the kids. And then, although nothing like the scroll saw work that we saw over there, also made chess pieces out of both maple and Padauk. And then, you won't be able to see this necessarily, but also another set that's out of basically nuts and bolts and is kind of effective. So, anyways, I thank you for welcoming me here. It's been really great.
Would you describe again, though, what happened with that first chessboard? I take it stretched? You said it tore itself apart, so what really happened? So there's a lesson there.
Yes. So I had read how you had to make pieces of furniture floating so that they could move separately.
Okay.
And I had never believed it.
Okay.
And, but in this case, the end grain with just normal changes in moisture, changes more, I think, than this end, this grain that runs this way. And so we ended up with splits across it that you don't see if it can move separately from the frame.
All right, so how did you solve it now? What did you do different here?
So
Okay.
this piece here
Had clearance all around.
floats in here on wooden splines all the way around.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So they can
So
move.
wood really does move, folks.
Yes. I can attest to that.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, this next one is cool. Kevin Goulet's got something.
I'm not sure if it's cool, Jerry. I just thought I brought in the first project that I ever did was when I was in junior high school. Maybe, was it 6th or 7th grade? And so it's these candle sconces. And I think this was a good project that they chose because you end up using majority of all the tools. You know, you use the table saw, and you use the router, and the band saw to do this, and then the lathe, and the drill press. So it was a great tool. But that class is what sparked my woodworking interest forever from taking that class. And
Junior high school.
Junior high school. Yeah, and the funny thing is you got to put your name on the back, and my name was spelled with a U, and they didn't have a U. Somebody lost the U stamps, so I had to use a V. The funny thing about that class that I still remember is before we started working with the equipment, back then they let us use the equipment, the teacher, Mr. Schultz, he took a hot dog, and on the end of the hot dog he took some nail polish and he painted a fingernail. He went over to the table saw and he ran it through the table saw, and it just went all over the room. But it stuck with me to show us the dangers of these tools, and it was very effective. And now SawStop uses that. So this is very old. I consider this antique.
What, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing, that'll be me. Early on when I put the call out, I was getting quite slow response. So Jim Kujay, sent me an email and said, "This is disappointing, we don't have many responses here." So he and I both gathered some of our old projects. In the meantime, lots of people signed up, so I'm really thrilled. But I still brought some stuff that the old timers, yeah, 10 years ago have seen this before, but some of the new timers perhaps did not see these boxes. No big deal, but this is where I am. Here's a mahogany box, a jewelry box. I made 3 of these, 4. This is the one I kept. But it was my pass at veneering, so I did some quarter match veneering there. And I was real impressed with myself, in spite of everything else here, but just shows that anybody can do something. This is a good one for starters, bandsaw boxes with drawers, and it's made only with a bandsaw. Berg made an entire presentation to the Guild a couple of years back on doing it. But there's a book here that someone published a number of years ago, and I probably did a dozen of them right out of this book and used them as gifts. So very simply, you can glue different species together to get whatever kind of interesting effects. And not really hard, it's just with a bandsaw.
How did you get the green on the inside?
Grain on the inside.
Green.
The green, that's felt. No, take it back, that is not felt. It's flocking. The kits, got them on Amazon. You spray in an adhesive, and then you have a little puffer, cardboard tube with whatever color flocking in. Put this in a box, cardboard box, self-contained, and then just pound it in there and the flocking fluffs down. And a few hours later, it's glued, it's in. So no matter what the shape is, it adheres. So that's powder flocking. Berg, is Berg here? Did you use flocking for yours? Or?
I do it all the time.
All the time,
Yeah.
so there we go.
Clean?
And they're different colors.
And it's just cut rayon.
What's that?
It's just rayon that gets cut to those very fine pieces.
Really?
Is it a clean process?
That's why you put it in a box, because it'll fluff up. And then when you're done, you just shake it off, clean it out, and whatever adheres sticks. What doesn't adhere, just put it back in a bag and save it for the next time. So, neat. Here's a little knick-knack box. I am proud to say this was my first example of the heat scorching. And again, I got my own cast iron little fry pan and Michael's sand, white sand. And after you cut out the little pieces, you tweezers, run it through the sand, and it makes really interesting shading on the pieces. So I was real pleased with doing that. This jewelry box, nothing too fancy, but it is a nice figured maple, and again, an inlay. I should have mentioned that this rose is an inlay also. But I am not into doing the intricate scroll sawing of the inlays. I used a template, Tartar Woodworking. I've got their business card here. I do want to mention this. I've mentioned it before. Hold it up again. At one of the Novi wood shows, many years ago when Novi had the wood shows, they were there, and that's where I saw this for the first time. And you buy their little kit, which is the router guide and the upcut spiral bit, 1/8" bit, 1/4" bit, and then you buy different plastic templates. In this case, for the hummingbird. And that hummingbird is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like about 8 pieces. The rose was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 pieces. And each one of those is in a template. And you, using their system, you cut out each, put the bushing on the router, cut out the grooves, then take the bushing out, and using those same templates on the veneers, cut out the individual pieces, and one at a time, you lay them in. And it's magic. So I highly recommend this. If anyone wants to look like they're doing something really fancy, look these folks up. They're online. You can order their stuff online. And then my most recent thing is the Komiko process. Jim, I think Jim did one that I saw. Maybe it was Clay Bulldog. One of our members had a Komiko, and that's where I saw it for the first time. It's a Japanese art form. And you make the Komiko piece. It's out of basswood. It's just 3/8 thick by 1/4" wide strips. Cut them out using a couple fixtures for the various angles you need, a 22.5, a 30, a 60, and a 45. I was able to buy the fixtures from the author here, and then with a chisel, you cut the angles in each of the pieces, and drop them in. There's no glue. So if someone was going to get nasty on me and pull that apart, if you pull out the hinge piece, it'll collapse. There is only glue is on the outside framework. Everything else is just precision paired with the chisel. Don't come and test me by trying to pull them out. They fit. You got to get it right so it fits in just snug, not loose, but not too tight. Because if it's too tight, it'll spread it out, and then one of the adjacent ones won't fit. But when you get them right, you get that very satisfying feeling. You just press in, just snugs in. It's done. So, a lot of patience, but that's fun.
Jerry, how thick a bandsaw blade do you use, and how many teeth per inch, and how do you tension it for the bandsaw box?
No bandsaw on this at all.
No, the
Bandsaw box.
Oh, the bandsaw boxes. I was using, that was a 1/4 inch, whatever my 1/4 inch was. What's the quarter?
I use 16.
16th, it's a 1/4-6. I'm looking at Bert, we have the same bandsaw, and we talk about blades.
6 or 16? 6.
6. But it could also be the 3/16. 3/16, 10 maybe that was. I believe it was the 1/4 inch. Okay. And you do a little bit of sanding after you cut it, but not much, because you don't want the drawer to be loose, but you can feel that when you cut this box out. I mean, it just fits right in there. When you go to put it back in. So that's a very satisfying project. But we're going to have a presentation next year. A couple of us that are doing Kamiko, we're going to do a presentation on that. So again, Tartar woodworking, I recommend that if you're interested in these kind of injuries.
Roughly how much was the patterns? Are they expensive or cheap?
No. $20, I think, for the kit. Maybe $20. And it's a 1/4 inch plexiglass, you know, with the shape, and they're numbered, and the instructions give you the sequence that you do it. So it's very easy. And these books have the plans for all these boxes are in the various books. Okay, that is done. We're done.
As many of you know, Ron Ross and myself are co-chairs for the toy and box program. It'll be in our November general meeting. Anybody that does have toys made or boxes, we'll be collecting them here at the November meeting. If you don't have them done by then, just contact Ron or myself, and we'll make arrangements to figure out how to pick them up. Usually we end up delivering them the first or second week in December to the Children's Hospital. Plenty of information on the website about our toy program. I brought in a display over there for toys. If anybody has an interest in making toys, and I know there's several of you here who have done so in the past and continue to do so, we do appreciate that. You can either call me or Ron, email us, phone number, speak to me today or whatever. But anyhow, just heads up that at the November meeting, any of you that have toys finished and ready to donate, we'll collect them. As has always been with the Guild, wheels, axle pegs, and washers are available from us, no charge. Okay? And yes?
Is there any way we can get some feedback from the hospital or from the kids when they receive these toys? My granddaughter went to Children's Hospital, and she walked into the waiting room, and she's 3, and she sees a couple of my toys, she, oh, my grandpa made these! And the other kids like looking at her like, huh? And that was the only feedback I ever got, you know, from anybody else, like, you know, my kids like them. You know.
Yearly what happens is that the Children's Hospital does give us a thank you letter, and we do our best to publish it in the newsletter.
I'm looking for maybe some film or something to, you know, see the kids, you know, getting these gifts.
Unfortunately, COVID kind of killed that. You know, before COVID, you know, there would be a number of us would go into the hospital and, you know, they'd have kind of like a, you know, hi, you know, meet and greet kind of thing. COVID came along and that killed everything. And even last year when we dropped off the toys with Ron and myself, it was like, you know, they had 2 or 3 hospital workers come out with big carts and we unloaded our cars right there. And that was like, you know, thank you, goodbye.
I remember the one year we just had to bring them to that room off to the left, drop them off there, and then you had to go.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's an unfortunate part that, you know, we really don't get any positive feedback. But every time that Ron or I contact our representative over there, Sinead is her first name. You know, I mean, she's very grateful. You know, I suppose we could maybe put some of the email correspondence we get, you know, in the website or something.
Maybe just a couple photos.
But I do want to say it was about 3 years ago. There was a younger fellow, you know, I don't know, probably in his 30s or something like that. And I think it was his first or second meeting with us. And I did have toy displays, and he came up to me, he said, part of the reason that I joined was a number of years ago, his daughter was only 3 or 4 years old at the time. She was in Children's Hospital for a pretty serious condition, and she got, you know, a couple of toys that some of our builders made, and he never forgot that. He thought, you know, he said, it's my way of paying forward, giving back. He said, I want to join and make some toys. So, yeah, we don't, you're right, we don't get much feedback, but.
A couple of photographs?
There's the letter.
Yeah, Kevin's pulled up the letter.
Yeah, it's,
Pretty generic letter.
it's a pretty generic thank you letter. You know, we're not the only group that donates toys. I think we're probably the only group that builds toys and donates them. There's a number of groups that do, you know, just go out and purchase toys or dolls or whatever and you know, donate those. But I think we're unique in that we're the only group that actually makes toys. And, you know, whenever I talk to Sinead or Ron talks to Sinead, I mean, you know, she's very appreciative for the work that goes into it. So, you know. But anyway, like I said, if anybody has any interest in making some, hasn't done it before, needs more information, I'm here today. So thank you very much for your time.
New building.
Yeah.
Some of you may have been reading, or some of you from Livonia know. And the big sign that's out front that has been announcing the new building. Month after month after month, we hear the building is going to open, going to open. We didn't know today if this was going to be open until Ron talked to Carl yesterday, and he said, yes, it's open today. Any day now they're going to open the new building, which none of us have seen yet. The October 11th meeting may be there, but we don't know, assuming we have it. But you will all be getting an email from me some point soon saying this building is closed and we're all going to the new building. Now it's only a mile down the road. Anybody know? Just a mile down, 5 miles. I don't know which way. Okay, so no big deal as far as travel plans for anybody. But we'll try to get the word out so we don't show up here. Guys, that's it. Meetings are all full. Thank you. I appreciate